Hello and welcome to my podcast, and I'm in conversation with a great friend of mine, Raymond Hack. I don't even know how to describe him because Raymond has done it all. He has seen it all. He has been here. He has been chairman of Wits University, chairman of the disciplinary committee, CEO of SAFA, chairman of the FIFA disciplinary committee, chairman of the CAF disciplinary committee, and there's just so much. There's so much history with this man that I don't even know where to start. But maybe I should say, Ray, welcome to my podcast.
Thank you, Thomas. Nice to be here.
Ray, honestly, there's so much. You and I come such a long way, but I just want to know, Ray, how did you get involved in football in the first place?
My involvement started when I was 16 years old.
Mm-hmm.
There was a gentleman by the name of Jack Sello.
He was with Swallows.
He was the chairman of Swallows. He was a policeman at that stage.
Yes.
And Jack used to buy boxes, second-hand boxes from my mother in Doornfontein.
Wow.
And he used to go to the Skyline bottle store and buy liquor and put the liquor in the boxes and then take them through to Orlando at that stage. And I met him and he said to me, "Would you want to see a proper football game?" And I said, "Yes." And he put me in the boot of his car.
No kidding.
He was a policeman, so we were not stopped. It was 1966, and he took me to Orlando Stadium, and I was with him. And because he was a policeman, no one said anything to him. And he was the one who introduced me to professional football or to proper football at that. Yes, you still had the Whites, the Highlands Parks, the Durban City, but that's when I saw Orlando Pirates, I saw Swallows, I saw Chiefs, when Kaizer came back, Benoni United, Witbank Aces, all those teams at that stage. And in fact, a couple of years ago, his daughter,
Jack Sello.
Yeah, Jack Sello's daughter, said she had a picture of him and me outside. He had this big red Chev with me there, and that's how I got involved in football, and I've never turned back since then.
You know, Ray, today's generation will not know. In fact, they don't even know that there used to be, those were crazy days. There used to be a time when whites had their own league in the NFL, blacks had the NPSL, and then there was the Federation and the Colored Federation, the Indian Federation. That is when you were smuggled to go and watch football at Orlando Stadium.
Yeah. I was probably the first white person ever to go to Orlando Stadium, unless there were others that I never knew about. I was 16 years old, I was there. And when you talk about the different leagues, I mean, when I became chairman of Wits University, we had a coach at the time, his name was Eddie Lewis.
Yes.
And Eddie coached Kaizer Chiefs, and he used to help Ishmael Pahad, who's Esop's brother.
Yes.
Ishmael used to run Dynamos.
Yes.
So we had an agreement because the university, Ronnie Slosh and I, when we wanted Wits University to become a professional team, went to, his name was Professor Duplessis at that stage, and he kicked me out of his office and he told me that the university is a place for education, not for sport. And the only way we could play is if we had students.
Yes.
So we eventually got around that, and we sent everybody to John Orr Tech to become a student. You learned. It didn't mean you had to have a university degree. You could be a bricklayer, you could be an electrician, you could be a tradesman, and that's how we got a lot of our players. But the interesting thing is we had an agreement with Ishmael from Dynamos that he would train at Wits University. We would train on a Saturday, and Chiefs would train on a Sunday. With Eddie Lewis, and the university always used to say to us, "Why is the university so full?" And we used to say, "No, we've got a lot of people watching the team," but it was three separate teams playing in three separate leagues.
Now, Ray, my interest is the late Eddie Lewis, may his soul rest in peace, was coach of Wits University. He also coached Kaizer Chiefs in the NPSL and Wits in the NFL. Now, what was the conversation between you and Kaizer Motaung that he would coach Wits on such days, and he would coach Chiefs at such days. And in terms of the salary, how did you?
Well, we did. It wasn't about salary or money. Chiefs didn't at that stage didn't have the facilities that we had at the university, so it was easy for them to come there. We had a good relationship with him. I remember Kaizer and I officially opened the Chief Jonathan Stadium in Lesotho.
Yeah.
We drove by bus to Lesotho, to Maseru. We did the opening there. I remember Chiefs were stopped on the way out, and we were stopped on the way back. How could we do this? Because we had two buses. Sometimes we mixed it. But our relationship went back a long, long time. From the time of Gilbert Sakhabi, prior to him, to Edward Nene. We had a good relationship with Chiefs. We've always had that relationship. And we've always had a good relationship with Pirates. I mean, Wits University were never, ever regarded as a white team as such. People may have thought we were. But as far as the soccer playing public were concerned, we were the students, and that's how we played. We weren't the glamour boys, as Chiefs were. We weren't the Pirates, but Wits University was accepted by everyone.
In 1978, Wits University and Kaizer Chiefs qualify for the Mainstay Cup final. Now, Eddie Lewis is coaching both sides. What happens?
Eddie Lewis then coached Wits University, and
How did you reach that decision? Was it because?
No, I think it was Eddie Lewis's decision, and Chiefs had their own coach, and at that stage it was starting to get more integrated as such, and we were fortunate enough to win the Mainstay at that time. We played Chiefs. The players that we had. No disrespect to the players today, but the players that we had there were just beyond belief.
Tell me about some of them. I remember Rodney Bush, Jimmy Cook from Wits University in those days.
Well, we had started off with our captain, Mike James. So for those who don't know, they'd probably know his son, Butch James, who's a Springbok rugby player. Mike James was a Springbok footballer. He captained the first white team. He was probably one of the best captains we've ever had. We had players like Joe Brown, Trevor Turner, Jimmy Cook, Frank McGrelis, Gary Bailey, Richard Goch, Steve Smith, Frank McGrelis, Andy Geddes. You can just name them. They all came. The players today, Steve Barker, who coached Stellenbosch, played for Wits. Eric Tinkler played for Wits. Zayn Musa played for Wits. We had the best academy, if you want to call it academy, but the best youth development ever at Wits University, because Kaizer's son played for us, Jomo's son, Mike Mangena's son. Everybody played for Wits from the ages of 8 to 16, and then they moved on to their various clubs.
I still remember the Mainstay Cup final in 1978, and Wits beat Chiefs 3-2. How did Wits pull it off? Because Chiefs had an incredible squad at that time. Maria Lamola, Teenage Ladla, Ace Ntsweleng,
Ryder
Mofokeng.
Computer Lamola for me was probably the best midfielder. I thought he was better than Ace in the sense that he always controlled it. Ace was brilliant. Ace would go forward. Computer never went forward. Computer
Are you kidding me?
Ace stayed at the back and in the middle and controlled everything. And his ability and his football brain was unmatched. Ryder was an absolutely brilliant captain for Kaizer Chiefs. You had Patson Banda, who was absolutely brilliant goalkeeper. They had Patson Banda. We had Gary Bailey. Dave Watterson.
Chiefs at that time had Banks Setlodi.
They had Banks Setlodi playing for them. Pirates had guys like Tiki Koza. The footballers in those years were great, but a story that everyone laughs about was that Eddie Lewis turned around to Mark Mocker, who was an Iron Man as a fullback and midfield player, and he said to him, "Watch Teenager, don't let Teenager out of your sight." And
Teenage was very tricky.
and Teenager was unbelievably, his skill level was unsurpassed. And Moko stayed on Teenager all the time. And eventually Chiefs took Teenager off, and Moko followed him, and they said, "Where are you going?" And he said, "You told me to stick to him, so I stuck to him." We had players like Davy Jacobs, Richard Kellett. His ability on a dead ball was unsurpassed. You had Joe Brown, brilliant captain, brilliant fullback, strong. Trevor Turnant, who was captain of Wits University, very good. We had good players. We landed up with Mike Mangena, who had been discarded by Chiefs. We had Mike Ntumbela. We had Wagga Wagga, Zeb Namola. We had brilliant players, and people weren't scared to come to Wits University, which was the good thing. So it didn't matter what your color was. Players like Zayn Musa, who came, didn't matter who you were, because Wits were regarded as, because we were the university, anybody could do there. And we were very fortunate in those days.
People are not aware that Gary Bailey actually blossomed at the Wits University, and you eventually sold him to Manchester United.
Yeah, we sold him to Manchester, but on the condition that he had an education, because Professor Slosh and myself always believed...
How did you spot him in the first place? How and where?
He was brought to us through his father, Roy Bailey, from East London. He came the Cape from that area, and his father brought him to Wits University. Roy Bailey, if I'm not mistaken, used to play for Ipswich Town.
That's correct, yes.
And he wanted his son to go overseas, and we said yes, he can go on condition he has an education, because our motto was always your life in football can be very curtailed sometimes, but if you've got an education behind you, you've always got something to fall back on. So when we sold him to Manchester United, it was on the basis that he had to go to school, he had to have an education, and in fairness to them, that's what they did, and they educated him. And he lives overseas, and he's very happy. And I think we made the right move. I mean, if we would have had him today, we could have made an absolute fortune.
But who approached you from Man United? Who made the approach?
I think the approach was done through his father, Roy Bailey, because he still had the contacts with Ipswich. So that's how they contacted us.
Yo, Ray. Now there comes a time. Football is now integrated, but we are still suspended by FIFA. Then there was that huge breakaway from football where the NSL is formed. What happened? How did it all come about?
Well, we were still playing in the so-called White League at the time.
Right.
We had just got promoted from the second division to the Premier League with Rex Evans,
yes,
of Highlands Park. And I remember Ronnie Slosh and I walked into the first meeting of the NFL, and he looked at me. We were young. I mean, I was at university doing a law degree, and he said to me, "Young man, you'll be out of here very quickly." And I turned to him, and I've never forgotten. I said to him, "Mr. Evans, we'll last longer than you." And in truth, we did. And we played in the White League in the NFL. And then Ronnie and I sat down one day and we said, this is totally wrong. We can't continue this way. And we then joined the NPSL. We were the first team to join the NPSL. A chap by the name of Saul Sachs from Arcadia joined with us. John DeCania from Lusitano. They joined with us. We tried to get Norman Elliott, but he didn't want. He wanted to join the federation, which was Abdul Bamji and Ramareddy and those guys. And we joined it, and we had an AGM because Kaizer was there already playing in that league.
Yeah.
John Mabasa was chairman of Orlando Pirates. 60 Marley was there, and they knew me, and I then got elected as the vice chair to George Tarby. And then Kaizer and I sat down one day, and I think it was an appeal matter.
Yeah.
And George Tarby was sitting on the appeal. And we said, as a lawyer, I said, you can't sit on the appeal. You're president of the professional league.
Correct.
Now you want to be sit on? And he said no. And there were too many things that were going on. There was a gentleman called Dave Schneer who ran the so-called White Amateur League. He was president, and he was the advisor to Tabi. And we decided that, this isn't for us. We're going to form another league. Kaizer and I met. We then had a meeting at the Holiday Inn. Ivan was involved. Lawrence Ngubani was there. Vali Mhlangu, Henry Mlongu. And we decided that we were going to break away. Kaizer and I then drafted a document, and we took it to George Tabi.
Yes.
Vali Mhlangu, I remember, drove us there. And he was threatened when we went into McCarthy House.
Yeah.
We gave the letter to George Tabi. We gave the letter to Mike Motlana, who was George Tabi's Secretary General at that stage.
Yes.
And Tabi said he wasn't interested. We could do what we liked. We went from there. We went to SA Breweries, and we spoke to breweries, and breweries said, yes, we'll back you for finance. We had, at that stage, I think we had like R1 million tied up at the NPSL. And we said we'd forego that R1 million because we'll make it up in years to come. We went to SA Breweries, and they said they would sponsor the league if we had Chiefs and Pirates and Swallows and everything. And that's where we had the drama of the two Pirates at the time. The unfortunate episode at Ellis Park with China Hlongwane. But in the end, we're still here. So it was the right decision, definitely the right decision. And then we managed to get it off and running. And, if you look at the PSL as it is today, it's probably in the top 5 in the world. And that's because of what happened in the Guinea and because of the administration, the way Ivan Khoza has, as chairman, has run it. He's had good people with him, and between Ivan and Kaizer and Jomo, they've all contributed to the PSL, and that's why the PSL is the success it is.
Now, Ray, there's this drama, a new league is formed, and it, as you say, it is one of the top 5 in the world, and but I want to go back to Wits University. Wits University, this massive institution with a history of more than 100 years. Why was it allowed to die?
Well, I think what happened is when I was appointed as the CEO of SAFA, I had to step away from the university, from Wits University. At that stage, Professor Slosh and I had decided that we were forming Wits University into a Section 21 company. So that's not incorporated for gain. At that stage, we made sure that Wits University had 51%, and they would always be in control of Wits University. We then offered sponsors, somebody to sponsor it, and at that stage it was Brian Joffe from Bidvest, and we gave him 49%.
Right.
So Wits were always in control. But the way football developed, there became let's say, an unwanted contest between Patrice and Brian Joffe as to who was going to be the better side, Wits University or Sundowns. Because remember, Patrice had bought Sundowns from the Crocs at that stage. Sundowns were originally Zola Mahobi and Snowy. Then the bank then took them over. Croc then bought it from them, and then Croc sold it to Patrice. Patrice and Brian Joffe were friendly. Cyril at one stage worked for Bidvest, if I'm not mistaken. So there was always that relationship. And Brian kept on putting, or Bidvest kept on putting money into Wits University for coaches, for players and everything. And eventually the loan account at Wits University diminished as opposed to the loan account for Bidvest, because it became a financial matter. And when Brian Joffe left Bidvest after his term, whatever, he wanted to take Wits University with him, and Bidvest didn't want that. and Joffe then left, and Bidvest decided amongst themselves, the people that were running, that they no longer wanted to be involved in sport. We found out about it after probably 2 weeks before they had given the university a deadline. We asked them for an extension because we could have got people to put money into Wits University so we could continue. But they weren't interested. They decided to sell it to somebody. And my understanding is they didn't even get paid for it. The person that they sold it to was subsequently arrested. And 99 years of history just disappeared. All those players, everything that we'd put up.
And the legacy.
And it was a legacy. There was no club older than Wits University. And it was a tragedy as far as football was concerned. But, you know, like Petrus Malamela, Bloemfontein Celtic, unfortunately it died out. And that's probably one of the lowest things in football that I've ever experienced.
Wow. Is there a chance that it can be revived?
Yeah, it probably can be revived. The cost would be a lot more today. I mean, Ronnie Slosh and I ran it out of the boot of our car at that stage because, you know, there weren't these big fees. We weren't getting a lot of money from television at that stage because they certainly weren't getting what they pay today. But obviously, Wits still continue. It's still got its nursery from under 8s all the way through. It still plays in the amateur league. And you've got to find people who have a passion for football. I was lucky because Ronnie had that passion. And, you know, Ronnie and I never had a fight in all the years that we had Wits University. We never had a disagreement. We were both on the same page. And his contribution to football is something, you know, he still works with the PSL and he's just an amazing person.
Ray, talking about the demise of Wits University, we've seen many clubs in the South African Premier League being sold and then bought and then resold again, and there's now currently the controversy between Moroka Swallows, who sold their status to Marumo Gallants, and now 2 years down the line, Swallows are saying Marumo Gallants still owe them a certain amount of money. Now they want their status back. They want to reverse the whole thing. How can this, because I don't think it's right. I don't know, as a legal man, how can this be tightened? How can the PSL make sure that this type of controversy doesn't occur as it is right now? Well,
you're correct. It's not right. I think the difference is the honesty of people who are involved in it. Yes, you can make money in football, but you have to have the passion for the game first. That's number one. I think number two is the PSL have, to their credit, introduced steps that you have to fulfill before you can take over a club. What then happens, for example, with Marumo Gallant and Swallows, if Marumo Gallant owes Swallows money, Swallows should have done something to recover the money. You can't come 2 years later and say, you haven't paid me. The money must be paid up front, okay? So the status goes, it can't be over a period of time that we want 2 years to pay it off. And I think what happens is a lot of the clubs use the television money that they will get in the Premier League to pay off their debts or to run the club. And that's not the way clubs must be run. You need proper administration. If you look at clubs like Amazulu at the moment, they've got competent people running them. Teams like Orlando Pirates, Chiefs, Sundowns, you've got competent people running them. You can't run it as out of the boot of a car anymore. It's got to be run with new people who understand the football, but they have to have a passion for the game. And the game must come first before the money.
Now, Ray, after you left Wits University, you went to the South African Football Association as CEO. What was the highlight of your time as CEO of SAFA?
Well, I was very fortunate. I had a president and a vice president who supported me all the way from the day I moved into SAFA the first time and the second time. when Danny Jordan became the became the CEO of the bid committee, from our 2006 thing to 2010. Obviously, the highlight was seeing 2010 come off the way it was. But I never ever had any disputes. We never had any controversies. We never had any problems within SAFA. Yes, there were times where we didn't have money, but we always found ways in which to do it the right way. If I look at the people, the coaches that we had, Carlos Pereira, for me, was still an absolute gentleman. He took us. Yes, we didn't.
How did SAFA at that time get to appoint him in particular? I mean, Carlos Pereira was a big name. How did you, us as South Africa, convince him to come? And was it because we were going to host the World Cup?
No. Willie Fund sent me across to Brazil to go and meet with him and see if we could get him here. And it was through Ivan Khoza and Molefi Oliphant.
Wow.
And as I said, you couldn't have wished for a better president and vice president at the time. And we had a strong board. We had people like Mohammed Mubarak, who was sitting on the board, in terms, he was the financial person. And you had to account for every single cent. Our books were audited every year. There was never any problem there. And when I left there was no controversy. And for me, that was the biggest thing. Because as an attorney, there's corporate governance and you had to ensure that. And I left with, when I eventually resigned, I think it was 2010, the end of 2009, I resigned because the new president that had come in was Kirsten Namatandani.
Yeah.
Him and his executive had a different train of thought to the way SAFA should run as opposed to the way Molefi Oliphant as president and Ivan Khoza wanted it run. And, I didn't buy into that and we left and that was the end of it. But I have no the people I worked with, I had a guy like Barney Kajani. When I look at the problems that SAFA have experienced with players, Barney Kajani would never let that happen.
Oh, Brabani.
Yeah. Pinky Lahoka, who worked for me, Dennis Mumble, who was there. We worked as a family. We never, ever had any disputes.
Yeah.
Solly Pasha, gave his life to football.
True.
All those people, it was one family. It wasn't because you are heading it, you're better than anything else. And for me, it was probably the pinnacle of my football career, being involved there.
Ray, currently SAFA is in a mess. I don't even have to tell you, SAFA is broke currently. We hear stories almost on a daily basis that players, Bafana players or Banyana have not been paid, regions have not been paid. And would you go back? Would you go back to SAFA, maybe as CEO or as president?
No, my time is gone, and I think that's the problem with SAFA. You reach a time where your sale-by date is gone. Okay, it's the same as if you milk on the shelf of a thing. You've reached a certain thing, you've achieved it, move out, there are new people, there are new ideas, bring in the young people, because there are new people who are just as passionate. And SAFA shouldn't be like that. When we left SAFA, we left them with a massive legacy. Okay, I don't know what's happened to that legacy. It's been squandered. Why it's been squandered? It should never have been. South Africa should be the number one football team in Africa because we had everything after the World Cup. We had the facilities. We had the money. As to what happened, it's not for me to comment. I have my own thoughts on it. But, you're there for a certain period.
Yeah.
As far as governance is concerned, my opinion, you cannot serve more than 3 years. Okay, if you're going to be on that executive, you need new blood, you need new people to come in, you need new ideas, and unfortunately, that hasn't happened.
Ray, before we wrap up, you say a good dancer needs to know when to leave the stage, and you say you can never go back. You've had your time. What are your thoughts on Danny Jordan, alleged to be interested in going for a 4th term?
Well, my personal opinion is I don't think you should. I think corporate governance dictates that you shouldn't be there. If you look at Sepp Blatter, if you look at any federation, if you look at the Olympics, if you look at all the international federation, there's a time limit of 3 periods, which is 12 years. That's more than sufficient for you to create a legacy. You know, Ivan Kaizer once said to me, you create a legacy by not following, by leading, but knowing when to leave, because your legacy can never be tainted after you've left it. My legacy, I left with a clean bill of health when I left SAFA. There was nothing untoward that anyone can ever point to, be it governance, be it finance. Yes, we may have made wrong decisions, but even with those wrong decisions that were made, I'll give you an example. We brought in Joel Santana. Okay, it was a wrong decision, but I had a president who stood by me. I had a vice president, Ivan Kaizer, who stood by me there, and I had an executive who stood by me. It wasn't a question of throwing anybody under the bus. Here, you read in the newspaper, as soon as someone says they're going to stand against someone else, that person loses his position or is removed. You don't operate that way. But it's not for me to say. As far as I'm concerned, there should be in the Constitution a time period that you can serve, and at the end of the day, you walk away saying, I've left a legacy there, let's see how other people build it. Because it's built on legacy. It's built on what, it's building blocks. It's A, B, C, D.
Correct.
Okay. You can't continue A forever because you get stale. With due respect, you get stale. You don't come up with the same innovative things that you had before.
Ray, thank you so very much. I think we need to take a break, but there's still so much that I want to ask you, Ray. Maybe we should meet again for a cup of coffee next week. What do you think?
Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.